Hey folks, so today Biden warned the world to expect global food shortages. And this is something I've been telling you guys about for quite a while. And I know other YouTube creators have been doing the same thing, to expect these food shortages. And I'm not talking about the type of food shortages we've been seeing throughout the pandemic. What I'm talking about is food shortages on a much greater scale. And the third world countries are going to get hit harder than anybody. They're going to get hit first and get hit harder. But it's going to affect everybody. And here in places like the United States, we may not be starving to death, but you can't expect prices to go way higher than they have already. You can expect far worse shortages. And while the stores may not run completely out of a product, you might be limited on the selection you can get. You might only have one type of cereal, or a very limited selection of bread, or things like that, because the vast amount of products that are in the American diet, I would say somewhere between 16 to 20% of that is from or includes as the main ingredient some form of wheat or soy or corn. So these grain shortages are really going to hit. Try to get out of the sunlight here for a second. These shortages are really going to hit not just bread and grains themselves, but any product that contains grains. And you look on just about any package and you'll see wheat, flour, soy, corn, something like that. Now, Biden met with Trudeau at the Group of Seven, or whatever it was. I forget what the name is. And he talked with Trudeau about the issue, the grain issue, and what could be done about it. And then he made a statement to the effect of, well, he's asking that, sorry, I'm trying to get some of that sunlight out of my eyes, folks. He's requesting that all countries worldwide lift their export restrictions on grains. And these countries are imposing these restrictions because they're having a hard time getting grain, and they don't have enough grain to take care of their own populations, their own citizens. So I don't understand what he's thinking, that they're going to give up what little food they have to feed everybody else. That's not going to happen. In fact, I would say that you could probably expect more countries to restrict exporting grains from to other countries. They're going to increase the restrictions. They're going to increase the bans. They're going to hold on to as much food as they possibly can. The shortages are going to get worse. The supply lines are going to struggle harder. And it's not just the grains. See, right now, Russia and Ukraine have been, up to this point, net exporters of grain. And with this conflict going on, and with the sanctions against Russia, neither country is really exporting anything. They're not really even planting anything, especially in Ukraine. So, the situation is just going to steadily get worse and worse and worse. add to that that Russia is also one of the major exporters of fertilizer. Fertilizer prices have gone up nearly, I think I heard one source say that some fertilizer prices have gone up for farmers nearly 400%. They can't afford the fertilizer, and their crops pretty much require it the way modern farming is done. So they're holding off planting crops, and now's the time pretty much worldwide. In Russia and Ukraine now is planting time. It's planting time here. And nobody's doing any planting because they're holding off because of either the fertilizer is extremely high or they can't get it. Now, one thing that a lot of farmers do that most people aren't aware of is they sell they do pre-sales on some of their grains and crops to try to take advantage of rising prices to help them do their planning and things like that. Well, a lot of farmers are trying to pre-sell some of their crops this year to take advantage of the high prices so they can pay for the fertilizer, the fuel, and all of that, all the higher costs affected by inflation, so that they can plant their crops and still get by. But these wheat futures, these crop futures, aren't being bought because people are looking at speculators are looking at this and saying, well, they don't want to pay these high prices for these pre-sales now, because if they do that and then when the crops come in, if the price is lower, then they're losing money. So the farmers can't pre-sell their crops or portions of their crops like they usually can, because nobody's wanting to buy the futures. Well, they can't pay for the fertilizer, or they can't obtain the fertilizer, and they don't want to plant the seeds without the fertilizer because a large portion of the crops grown now are GMO. The farming practices require heavy fertilization. They require other chemical sprays that are extremely expensive as well. It's not just the fertilizers that have gone up in price. So they don't want to plant what seed they have without the fertilizer and the sprays that they need, because they don't want to get a bad crop and not have a good return on it, which is understandable. So this is a self-feeding cycle of getting worse and worse and worse, because now that nobody's planting anything, there's going to be even more food shortages. It's just going to keep feeding on itself. This is exactly what I've been warning you about for the last few videos. And this is what a lot of other creators have been warning you about. This is going to happen. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And with our just-in-time sorry about that. I was hearing something in the trees and bushes behind me. With our just-in-time manufacturing and supply line system, where you order things and they get there just in time before you run out or before you need them, we don't have a good inventory built up. So it's said that if the delivery trucks stop coming to the grocery store, they only have about 3 days of food in the store itself. I heard today from one source that overall the food chain within the United States, at least, possibly even worldwide, but especially within the United States, that if we completely stop growing crops, if nothing is grown, no food is produced, there's about 90 days worth of food in the system. How true that is, I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I would hazard a guess that it's not accurate. That's being on the optimistic side. This is why I've been telling you, stock the food while you can. Get it while you can. Get it while it's cheap. It may not be as cheap as it was, but it's cheaper than it's going to be. So stock it while you can, as much as you can, and you have to try to produce whatever you can of your own. I don't care if it's getting 5-gallon buckets and some of these large flower pots from the store and growing beans and tomatoes, potatoes, and things like that in these pots. It can be done. Container gardening is easier. Well, it's easy. It's not impossible. There's certain things that you can't grow that way, but there's an awful lot that you can grow in these pots and in these containers. And even if you have an apartment with just a small balcony, you can fit 2 or 3 pots out there at least, and grow something. It may not be a lot. It may be something small, a very small amount of your diet, but every little bit that you can grow will help. If you can't grow a lot, network with people that can. If neither one of those options are open to you, your only choice is to buy food and stock it. Buy fresh or frozen vegetables, dehydrate them, can them, do whatever you can. But folks, it's critical that you do this. We are looking headlong, not just into a potential World War III situation that we've been talking about, but we are looking down the barrel of another Great Depression. And again, it's not necessarily going to be that you can't get the food. More than likely, you're not going to have the selection that you want. There's certain things you're not going to be able to find, but more likely, the food that you can find is going to be so extremely expensive that you can't afford to get enough of it to feed yourself. That your budget for food, you're just not going to have enough money to buy the food you need to get through to your next payday or however you're living. If you're living paycheck to paycheck like the vast majority of Americans, you have to stock your food. You have to produce your own food. If you're not doing this now, if you don't understand this and you're not starting to do this now, I don't know what to say, because you're going to find yourself in a very, very bad situation. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to see my son go hungry. I don't want to see my family go hungry. And I don't want to go hungry myself. So you can't just think about yourself. You have to think about the people that are relying on you. If you have a family, if you have kids, that family, those children, are relying on you to make sure that they have food to eat. It's your responsibility. So you need to take responsibility, take action, store this food, produce it if at all possible. Because this is a problem, and there's been experts in the ag industry that have said that this problem, the way it's going and the way our system is set up, it could take years to dig out of this, the shortages that we're facing. That when the system finally fails, it could take years to dig out of it, and there's a possibility that we may not ever be able to dig out of it. So we're looking at another Great Depression. And just like in World War II, those victory gardens, those are going to become essential. So I know you folks get tired of hearing me talk about this stuff. it's not glamorous like guns and ammo. It's not glamorous like tactical gear. It's not attention grabbing like news about World War III or the pandemic, all the shock and awe articles and headlines and discussions that people like to have. You know, I've seen it in the views and stuff from my videos. When I talk about these hot button topics that are covered in media going on worldwide, those get lots and lots of views, hundreds of views. But when I talk about growing potatoes or growing beans, things like that, they get very few views. I swear somebody's back there walking around. Sorry about that, folks. But yeah, this is sorry. There's somebody walking around over there talking. Anyway, that's all I've got. You have to take responsibility for your family. Grow your own food. Store food while you can. You're gonna need it, folks. That's all I've got. I'm gonna stop there. But take it seriously, folks. It's not something to sneeze at. I know it's not as glamorous and exciting and thrilling as a lot of the other stuff that we talk about. It's not the cool prepper fantasy to talk about food. You want to talk about war and fighting off the zombies and all that kind of crap, and the reality is that you may or may not have to use a gun to defend yourself. It's becoming more likely that that's where we're headed, but you may or may not need to do that. Up to now, I've never had to pick up a gun to defend myself. But I've had to eat every single day. And that's going to continue to happen. I'm going to continue to have to eat all the way up until the day I die. So it's not glamorous, but it's reality. So just take it to heart, take it seriously, and do what you got to do. And with that, that's all I've got for right now. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, folks, take care. Catch you later.